All right. On today's show, we're talking Tennessee Titans. It's Tony Ransom, Sports Talk Tennessee. Right. Welcome to It's Tony Ransom Sports Talk Tennessee, the number one spot where you stay up to date on all your favorite Tennessee sports, guaranteeing to give you the latest updates, breaking news, and definitely, last but not least, my opinion. I'm your host, Tony Ransom, and this is Sports Talk Tennessee. Now, I want to welcome everyone to the show. Before we get started, I want to say a special thank you to all our current subscribers. Thank you for your support. Make sure, if you have not done so, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and definitely share the link. Remember, we're going to keep you up to date on all your favorite Tennessee sports. Now, on today's show, we are going to start off by a recap of the Tennessee Titans offseason thus far. We've been pretty busy. I'm actually enthused about some of the things that I see us doing so far. We're going to talk about the front office restructure, break down some of the roles of the new hires and their responsibilities. Also, if you haven't heard, the Tennessee Titans, we've got the number one draft pick. So we're going to talk about what I think the options we have there and, in my opinion, what we should do with that number one draft pick. We're going to touch a little bit about the current roster. We've got a few players that's coming up in free agency. We're going to talk about who I think we should keep and who we should be targeting in the free agent market. Then, last but not least, got a bright spot from last season that we're going to talk about. I know there weren't many, but I think there's one we should be really, really excited about. So sit back, relax. We'll be right back. It's Tony Ransom, Sports Talk, Tennessee. All right, a portion of today's show is brought to you by the Self-Taught Sessions podcast. Listen, you guys, you got to definitely check this out. It's inspiring. I listen to it. I'm a subscriber. I can assure you, you will not be disappointed. So tap in, tell all your friends, check it out at the Self-Taught Sessions podcast.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
What are you listening to?
Oh, it's the Self-Talk Sessions podcast. It's really good.
What's that?
Oh, it's this self-talk and affirmations podcast that allows you to shift your mindset, reconnect with yourself, and step into your most divine life.
Oh, wow. Where can I listen?
Oh, it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify right now.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna tap in.
All right, welcome back. Now, we are going to jump right into the Tennessee Titan front office. Now, as we all know, we've got Amy Adams Shrunk as the owner. And at the end of the season, first breaking news we heard was Chad Brinker promoted to president of football operations, Rand Carthon fired. Now, when I first heard the news, kind of had mixed feelings. First, I think Rand is a good general manager. I think he can go to another organization. I think with his relationships that he has around the NFL, I think he can do another organization, really good justice. Needless to say, I think the Tennessee Titans decided at the end of last season, or the debacle of last season, with the number one draft pick, that we were going to go in a different direction. And I think that's just not what Rand was hired for. I think Rand was hired for, we were going to be able to win within the next few years. And I think based on last season, I think the Titans organization, the ownership has decided to kind of prepare for the future. And I actually totally agree. So we promoted Chad Brinker to president of football operations. Obviously, with the firing of Rand, we had to find a general manager. Now, when I first heard about some of the candidates, some of them I was, pretty enthusiastic about, some of them not so much. I think I was kind of fired up about Ian, I think he was a candidate when they hired Rand. So thought maybe they may go that way. We had names like Reggie McKenzie. Wasn't too excited about him as a GM. And we're actually going to speak about him a little bit later because I think he did get hired onto the staff. So, long story short, I hear that Mike Borgonzi is one of the candidates. Now, I'll say this: when I first heard about him as a candidate, I didn't think that we had an actual shot at getting Mike. He was an assistant manager over at Kansas City, and with Chad Brinker being promoted to the president of football operations, definitely sent a signal out over the NFL that he was going to be on the staff going forward, and Rand was fired. Well, it kind of brought about some confusion that people were talking about over the NFL, all around the NFL. People were saying, well, what is a general manager going to do if Brinker has say so? That's a general manager that's kind of like a lame duck. Well, for that reason, I was confused somewhat myself. But for that reason, I didn't think Mike Borgonzi was going to be a viable candidate. I didn't think we were actually going to be able to get him to join the Tennessee Titans staff. So when I got the news that he was hired and he was our general manager, oh yeah, I was totally fired up about this. I mean, this guy is a guru at finding talent. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, need I say anymore? So right after hiring of Borgonzi, the Titans actually released a definition of the roles and responsibilities of these two players here, these two front office guys. And if you think about it, normally in the NFL, you've got a owner, general manager, then the head coach. And I think somewhat we forget that the general manager has a large role and has to wear many different hats. So the Titans, what they did, they defined those roles. Keep in mind, there was a lot of talk about, okay, well, if Borgonzi is going to be the general manager and Brinker is the president of football operations, who was going to have the final say so. So the Titans kind of cleared that up a little bit here. So let's go over what they say Brinker, this is going to be Brinker's role. So Brinker's going to have direct oversight over all football departments. So I guess he's like the final say, the in between everyone else and Amy. He's going to also oversee the salary cap. He's going to manage the analytics and stats. He's going to address communications and IT systems. Also, he's going to manage the team operations, including the security, video, equipment, grounds, things of that nature. Now, keep in mind, with other organizations, this is all something that a general manager does. Well, let's detail what the Tennessee Titans have designated as the role for Mike Borgonzi as a general manager. Mike is going to draft players. He's going to handle free agency and trades, evaluate college players, and assist the coaching staff. Last but not least, also, I think to Mike's, one of his tributes is that I think Borgonzi is going to set a really good culture in the front office that's also going to trickle down to the coaching staff and obviously to the players. Now, as far as drafting players, there is, I think, where there was some confusion over the NFL as to who would have the final say-so. I want to applaud the Tennessee Titan organization for detailing these different roles of each different person. And I also want to applaud the Titans for recognizing that the NFL has advanced and has expanded a large amount over the last few years. I mean, the old GMs, and even the current GMs, they handle all of this, and those roles are increasingly becoming more and more and more and more. Now, true enough, they do have staff. It kind of may trickle down. But think about what the Titans did here. The Titans said, you know what, Brinker, you're going to be responsible for all that behind-the-scenes stuff. Whereas Borgonzi, for what he is really good at, he's going to draft players, handle free agency, evaluate college players, He's going to be focused on the player aspect of it. And I think that's a definite home run. I mean, we'll see. The proof is in the pudding, obviously. But I think that you're going to actually see a lot of NFL organizations adapt this new front office restructure. I mean, they really, I think, hit the nail on the head with not having one person be responsible for all of those duties. Now, a few other hires that we did. It looks like we hired Dave Ziegler. He was the general manager for the Raiders between 22 and 23. I mentioned earlier about Reggie McKenzie. He was the senior personnel executive of the Dolphins. Also, he's got ties to Tennessee. He was a volunteer player from 81 to 84. Now, I do like Reggie McKenzie. I do. I like him as a front office guy. Was not so thrilled about him possibly being the general manager. So I do like them bringing him in, and I think with those, he has a really good pulse on players, and I think with that front office setup that they have there, I think we've got a lot to be really excited about. So kudos to the Tennessee Titans, man. Tighten up. I mean, I am definitely excited, especially if the front office and what they've done is any indication of where we're headed in the future, man. We've got it going. All right. Now, when we come back, we're actually going to jump into that first round draft pick. All right. So sit back, relax. It's Tony Ransom, Sports Talk, Tennessee. It's Tony Ransom, Sports Talk, Tennessee. Welcome back to my favorite segment of the show. Been waiting on us to get a chance to discuss this. We're going to be talking about what the Tennessee Titans could potentially do with the number one draft pick. Now, before we dive into that, I think it's important that we pay attention to what the new brass in Tennessee with Brinker as the president of football operations. We've got Borgonzi as our general manager and Callahan still as our head coach. Now, before we dive into what the Titans will do with the number one draft pick, I think it's important that we pay attention to what they've said already. Now, as soon as they announced that Mike Borgonzi was going to be our general manager, Chad Brinker went on a early morning radio show in Nashville, and he was asked about that exact thing. What would the Titans do? What are their options? What are we thinking about doing there with the number one draft pick? And take a listen to this. Just listen to what Brinker had to say about that.
How, open are you to the idea that somebody come calling, then you might answer that as far as moving back and collecting more picks?
Yeah, we got to look at all the options. But the one thing I will say, if there's a generational talent, you don't pass that up. You can't pass that up. And if we feel that there's a generational talent right there, what we call a blue player, a guy that is a franchise type player, the player that tips the field in your favor every time they step on the field, you cannot pass that up. But we'll also look at all the options, not only at the number one overall pick, but in all the rounds. I mean, we got to see what the value is. We got to see what's on the table. We got to, do what's best for the Tennessee Titans and helping us build a football team that can sustain over time. And I've emphasized how important the draft is, that the core of this roster is going to be built through the draft. We're looking at all those options.
All right. I think you guys, we heard it from the horse's mouth. Generational talent. Now, before we go into what I think the Titans are going to do and even give my opinion on what I think we should do, I think it's important that we dissect what Brinker's saying when he says generational talent. Now, this word is used a lot over the NFL in professional sports. I'm going to dive into exactly what I think what he's saying when he says generational talent. Now, out of the players coming out of college this year, they're in the draft, I think we've only got basically two players that we would consider generational talent. Obviously, Travis Hunter, cornerback, wide receiver, Heisman Trophy winner. And there's someone else that jumps out, and that's Abdul Carter, edge rusher. Now, according to all the reports, this kid is ready to go day one, just like Travis Hunter. Now, before we jump into what I think the Titans will do, we all know we definitely need a quarterback. Okay, the experiment we had with Will Levis last year, I think we can all agree, just has not worked out. So I think Will Levis will be a okay quarterback in the NFL, maybe in a backup role. Yes. However, as a franchise quarterback, I don't think he's there yet. So that leaves us as the Titans in a position to where we've got the number 1 draft pick. Do we pick a quarterback, which we desperately need, or do we start building our team, defensive line, offensive line? Obviously, we definitely have to shore up the offensive line. I think we're good on the left side from center over to our rookie left tackle. However, on the right side, I think we need some help there. And I think that's going to actually influence a lot of what we do, and not only with the number 1 draft pick, but also with the later rounds of the draft. So with that being said, we got 2 generational players. If we go according to what Brinker said, we're definitely going to draft a generational player. We would not leave that player on the board. And I totally agree with that. I mean, because you look over time, some players you just know when they come out of college, they're going to hit the ground running. Joe Burrow, you know that this guy was going to have an impact on the NFL day one. And I think that's what Brinker is referring to when he says generational talent. Not to say that any of these other players don't turn into generational talents. I just feel like the Tennessee Titans, with the number 1 draft pick, want to draft that sure guy. And like I said, somebody that can start day one, impact the team. I mean, other teams are going to have to plan against this guy. He's going to have a day one impact on what we do as a team and as an organization. And I think that's what we should do with the number 1 draft pick. However, like I said, we definitely need a quarterback. So that kind of throws the Sanders and Ward debate in whether or not we should draft a quarterback with that number 1 pick. Now, before I give my opinion, I'm going to go through a few stats here according to NFL Draft Buzz. And we're going to start with Sanders. And like I said, not to say that Travis Hunter is not a generational talent, because I think he is. I do. I totally think he is. I just don't think from where the Titans stand right now and the needs that we have, that Travis Hunter as a cornerback wide receiver would be our first round pick. So I think we can eliminate that, and we can kind of narrow it down to either Sanders, Ward, or Abdul Carter. So I'm gonna give a few stats that we have here on Sanders, and this is, like I said, according to NFL Draft Buzz. Sanders, 6'2", 215 pounds, 4134 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, QBR rating of 75.5, completion rate at 74%. Now, some of the pros, some of the things that they say are really good about Shedeur Sanders, and like I said, this is according to NFL Draft Buzz, says that he's an elite processor. We know that. Guy's got great pedigree, comes from Deion Sanders. He says he works well through progressions with a vet-like precision. Definitely with the transition from college, going into the NFL, especially as a quarterback, you've got to be able to adjust to the speed of the game. Another one of his pros is that they say he's accurate, and we can all tell that. Looking at the film, looking at the tape, Shedeur Sanders is accurate. He puts the ball where it needs to be. Poised under stress. I mean, he's Deion Sanders' son, prime time son. So believe me, stress, pressure, this kid has dealt with it from day one. There's no stage big enough for him, or too big for him, should I say. Also, another one of his a big plus for Shedeur Sanders, and I actually like this one as one of my favorites, is the fact that he has good ball security. We know from what happened with Will Levis last season, securing the ball was one of our downfalls. So I think bringing in Shadur Sanders, if we decide to go with the quarterback, along with the added motivation he has always received from Deion Sanders, I think that's a really good, solid, safe pick if we decide to go with the quarterback. Now, on the flip side, here are a few of the things that, according to NFL Draft Buzz, they have to say that are some of the weaknesses of Shadur Sanders. And I hate to label this stuff as weaknesses when we're talking about these college players. I mean, these are kids coming straight out of college, going into the NFL. There's going to be a learning curve. And I think some of those weaknesses go back to what team actually drafts them. Because to certain teams, a weakness, if they are good in that area, it's not necessarily a weakness. So I think that's a lot. Those weaknesses and those pros and cons kind of, especially the cons, kind of have to be diluted somewhat based on what team they go to. But nevertheless, we've got Shadur Sanders. So one of the weaknesses that they say is that he's got high confidence, and will throw the ball through tight windows. Now, I can see that maybe being somewhat of a problem. However, I think that's actually one of the things that he gets with a good NFL team. That's something that decision making. He's got a great high IQ. I know they don't talk about. They said he's an elite processor, but I want to add to that I think, and I feel like Shadur Sanders has a very, very high IQ, and I think that's got to do somewhat with how he was brought up, with having Deion Sanders as his dad and coach. I mean, think about this. I watched some of Primetime's videos, some of his interviews, and I'm going to tell you, there is no other person in sports that I can say is more motivating than Deion Sanders. I mean, I watch his stuff and it makes me want to hit the ground running. So I think with Shadur having that upbringing and having that always in the background is a total plus that you can't measure on paper. Now, another one of the drawbacks they say to him is that he takes on negative plays. That's one of those other things that I think that based on the offensive line he had in Colorado, that's something that moving to the NFL where you've got, you should possibly have a better offensive line. I think that's something that can be corrected. Now, I do not sometimes don't agree with, him taking a sack when I think he should throw the ball downfield. However, like I said, I think that's something that could be corrected when he gets to the next level. Now, here's one of the things that, to me, scares me just a little bit. They say that he needs to improve on recognizing the blitz. Now, in the NFL, we know the schemes are different, they're tricky. I mean, they're coming. So Shadur Sanders, I think, if that's one of his weaknesses, that's something that I think he's really, really got to pay attention to and try to do all he can to correct. Either way, I think Shadur Sanders, if you're going to draft a quarterback, he has so much upside that's not necessarily athletic. I think you can't measure it because this kid has got heart, he's got the pedigree, and I think if you decide to choose a quarterback, with the first pick, I think you don't miss with Shadur Sanders. Okay. Now, moving right along. Cam Ward, 6'2", 223 pounds, 4313 yards, 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, QBR of 88.7, completion rate of 67.2. Some of the strong points that we all have seen with Cam that they note here on NFL Draft Buzz is his arm release variety. Cam Ward looks like he can throw the ball from almost any angle. It's like Patrick Mahomes. Like he gives you that feel watching him. We also know he can extend plays with his leg. And that's one of the differences between him and Shadur is that Shadur definitely knows how to step up in the pocket, stand firm, and throw the ball. I think one of the advantages you have with Ward is that not only can he step up in the pocket, he can actually run up and break out 10 or 20 yards on a broken down play. So his extending the plays with his feet, and we know in the NFL, being a rookie quarterback, and as we stand now with a questionable offensive line, I can see where that'll definitely be a benefit, not only for the Titans, but also for anybody that decides to draft him, if we don't. Now, another one of this is like my big plus about Cam Ward. This is the thing that I think I like about him the most. And I think if the Titans do draft him, I think this is going to be the thing, the characteristic that stands out the most. Ice water in his veins. Cam Ward is cool, calm, collective under pressure. And those are some of those measurables that you just cannot teach. I think with Cam Ward, especially with what Callahan has said, what he looks for in a quarterback, I think Cam Ward, that characteristic fits what Callahan's system is to the T. Last but not least, I think one of his strengths too that they mentioned is his huddle presence. You watch Cam Ward in college, especially in that Syracuse game, he commanded the pocket. He was cool as a cucumber, and you can tell the other players in the huddle, they know he's confident, he's ready to go. No worries there. All right. Not going to get razzle-dazzled, not frazzled. Now, on the flip side, some of the weaknesses that they note about Cam Ward actually scare me a lot. And here's the reason why. It's like having a bad relationship. Whenever you leave a bad relationship, go to a new one, you always look for those things, the main things in that relationship that kind of turned you off. It's like, no way, I'm definitely not dealing with that. And some of Cam's weaknesses remind me of Will Levis. And even though I think Will Levis will be a great or a good backup quarterback, the things that he did with this season, if there are any signs that Cam Ward has this and it cannot be fixed, I'm just not. I'm not on it. I'm not in on Cam Ward on those things. And here's the first one, that he relies on his arm strength. We definitely know Will Levis did that. Now, do I think Cam Ward can be taught out of that? Yes. I think it's going to determine whether or not he's in a mindset to be able to correct it. I think one of the problems that we had with Will Levis was Will Levis, and I'm not 100% certain. I just always got the feel that Will Levis knew he needed to improve. However, I think he wasn't real with himself in saying that, in knowing that he's got to make better decisions. I think he relied on his arm strength. And I think if we've got that same thing with Cam Ward, I'm out on that part. And like I said, it may be able to be corrected. We'll see if we decide to draft Cam Ward. Here's the second one. Also, once again, it reminds me of this bad relationship with Will Levis, ball security. Without going into detail, because I like to put the past behind us, we all know Will Levis had a big issue with ball security. Now, these last few that they hit Cam Ward on, I'm not that worried about it. I mean, deep ball accuracy. I mean, I think that's something that, first off, I don't think he's not that accurate on the deep ball. I mean, watch some of his college footage. Guy can shoot it down there. And one of the things that they talk about him so well about is the fact that he can deliver every throw from every part of the field. Now, last but not least, this one, I mean, it scares me a little bit. However, I think this can be taught out, and that's developing on how he reads complex coverages. I mean, any quarterback that is drafted is going to have a learning curve on learning the complex coverages of the NFL. Obviously, they've been in college and they haven't seen some of those coverages, nor have they seen some of the players that are going to be executing those coverages. So I don't take that as a really big hit against Cam Ward. And I would have to say this. If we decide to draft a quarterback with the first pick or in the first round, if we trade down or whatever. If I had to choose between the two, and believe me, this may change a lot between now and the draft in April, but as it stands right now, I think I'd actually take Shedeur Sanders. We don't have to worry about the fact that he is kind of loose sometimes with the ball, sometimes with his decision making. And also, I think with Sanders, you get that Deion Sanders effect. You get that extra off the field promotion. You get that pedigree that Deion has obviously instilled in all of his boys throughout all of their careers. So I think that's, if I had to lean between Sanders and Ward, if we take a quarterback with the first pick, I think I'm leaning toward Sanders. And like I said, that could change later. But as it stands right now, I'm leaning toward Sanders. Now, with all that being said, I don't think we're going to take a quarterback in the first round. I don't. I mean, if you look back at what Brinker said, generational talent. Now, do I think Sanders and Ward may become generational talents? Yes, very, very possible. However, Brinker said that there's no way they would leave someone on the board that's a generational talent. Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Travis Hunter, we don't necessarily need a quarterback wide receiver. We do, just not that high, I think, in the draft. That leaves only one person, and that's who I think that the Tennessee Titans are actually going to draft in the first round, and that's Abdul Carter. Man, this kid is 6'3", 259 pounds, got 43 solo tackles, 12 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. From what I hear, his measurables are outstanding. This guy's got amazing arm length. And I think that Abdul Carter from day one hits the NFL on the defensive line and makes an immediate impact. You want to know how a good offensive line and edge rusher can influence a game or a season or a team? Look at the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday with the Super Bowl. Their defensive line manhandled the Kansas City Chiefs. Also, we can quote Jalen Hurts at the end of the game. What did he say? Even though he threw 3 touchdowns, Super Bowl MVP, what was his quote? Defense wins Super Bowls. And I think that's actually where the Tennessee Titans will go with having Abdul Carter there. Definite generational talent. I think that's where we're going to go with that first pick. Now, do I think we may trade down and let either New York take Sanders at the first pick? Very possible. But I do think our first pick, and I agree. I think our first pick should be Abdul Carter, and I think that's the route I think the Titans will end up going with that. We can actually dive into a little bit about what Callahan looks at as far as in a quarterback, with the statements that he made at the Senior Bowl. Callahan spoke about having a quarterback that was cool under pressure. Now, do I think that Ward is cool under pressure? Yes. I think Sanders is cool under pressure? Yes. I think what impacts whether or not we take a quarterback in the first round this year is the quarterback class coming out next year. I mean, it's widely agreed that this quarterback class is not as good as the quarterback class coming out of next year. We also know that with hiring Borgonzi, I mean, he gave an interview and he spoke about, what he had been doing this season. Well, Borgonzi, we know, is a guru at developing talent, finding talent that is developable. He's a guru at finding free agents. And he actually mentioned in an interview, he said that when he was asked about, the quarterbacks, since the Titans have the first, the number 1 draft pick, he mentioned that he hadn't had a lot of time this year to actually observe some of the college players. Obviously so. He worked for the Kansas City Chiefs. They would have had no reason to look for a quarterback. So I think with us drafting Abdul Carter, that actually gives Borgonzi an opportunity to spend all next year observing these quarterbacks. I think we've got a really good chance with Arch Manning, Nico over at the University of Tennessee Volunteers. And why not give Borgonzi a chance to actually observe these quarterbacks and be able to make a really good decision as to who would be that generational talent, to where regardless of what we have in the first round, we can possibly move up, get us a franchise quarterback, along with this draft being able to set up some of those pieces on the front lines. And I think, in my opinion, not only do I think that's what they should do, I think that's exactly what they will end up doing. So all in all, I think the Tennessee Titans are going to first round draft Abdul Carter. I think, and then later on in the draft, I think we'll address some of the other issues. However, the fact that Sanders is, rated so high, and I think New York wants him, I think there is a possibility that we will actually trade down, still get our player, but also be able to pick up some extra picks in this draft and in the next couple of years' drafts. So that's my opinion on who we should draft. Those are the facts. Thank you for tuning in. This is Tony Ransom Sports Talk, Tennessee. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Tony Ransom Sports Talk, Tennessee. We have finally reached our last segment of today's show. We're going to be talking about now the current roster of the Tennessee Titans, who I think we should keep in free agency. Also, who I think we should be targeting in free agency. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So, the Tennessee Titans have a few players on our roster that are going to be free agents. I think the free agency starts March the 12th. I'm going to go down a brief list, and this is not going to encompass everyone, but these are some of the players that stand out that I think we definitely should retain and not let them get on the free agent market. Number one, defensive tackle, Sebastian Joseph Day. I think he's a solid player. I think we should definitely look to re-signing him. The Tennessee Titans, we've got roughly $44 million in cap space. And with all of these players that are on my list, none of them actually would break the bank. So I think we're safe with retaining these players, giving them an extension, giving them another contract. So like I said, starting off with defensive tackle, Sebastian Joseph Day. This next guy is a total no-brainer. You guys can disagree with me on a lot of the people on this list, a lot of players on this list. However, I think this guy, like I said, is a no-brainer. And that's wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Akine. Solid player, totally solid player. Homegrown, Tennessee Titans developed him. And if you listen to what Callahan had to say about, he was actually asked in an interview some of the things that he would possibly change, looking back on last year's season. And we all know hindsight is 2020. He mentioned one player that he said that he would have used a lot differently, and that was Nick Westbrook-Akine. We know in the beginning of the season, I think we a lot of targets went to Hopkins. And I think with Nick Westbrook-Akine, he kind of had to take maybe the third wide receiver role. However, with the trade with DeAndre Hopkins going over to Kansas City, it allowed Nick Westbrook-Akine to actually show some of his skills. And what a perfect time to do so on a contract year. So I think he's a definitely no-brainer. Re-sign Westbrook-Akine, wide receiver. All right. moving right along, I think we should re-sign Daryl Worley. Also, safety, Quandre Diggs. We have not had an opportunity to see everything I think that he has to offer. I am totally on board with signing him. However, I've one if, and that's if he's healthy. If we think we can get him back to at least 80% of where he's been, I think Diggs is worth re-signing. We've got holes there in the safety spot. Even if we draft someone, you still have Diggs there to kind of mentor and let that rookie see how it's done from the safety position. So we've got Diggs. I think we should re-sign him. Linebacker Luke Gifford. I think we should re-sign him. This other guy is also a no-brainer. Nick Folk as our kicker. I think as long as Nick Folk decides he wants to be a kicker in the National Football League, we should re-sign him. Give him a one-year deal. Make it good. Make sure he stays a Titan. Last but not least, I think we should sign our guard, Dylan. Now, Dylan Radders is actually, maybe not a premier starter in the NFL. However, I think if you bring in someone that's a veteran, I think he's a good relief guard. I think he's got a good motor, and I think he's worth us re-signing and keeping on the team. And like I said, all of these players I don't think will just necessarily break the bank. So that's my kind of short list to the current players we have on our roster that will be free agents and that we need to re-sign. All right, now moving right along. This is the part I think I'm a little bit more excited about. And that's the current free agents that are going to hit the market. Who should we be targeting? Now, number one, top of my list is going to be Trey Smith, right guard out of Kansas City. Now, we all know about Berganzi, how he can develop talent, how he develops players. I think the relationship with Trey Smith kind of will give Tennessee a little bit of the lean to come and play for the Titans. We definitely need a lot of help there at the right guard position. And if we sign him in free agency and then go out and draft a right tackle, I think you've got a rookie with a veteran, and I think that'll work out really, really, really well. So definitely I think we need to be targeting Trey Smith. Now, this next player, there's a lot of if we actually should target him. I have him on my list because of where we sit in the quarterback position. And if we go along with what I think we should do and what I think, like I said before, what I think the Titans will do with drafting Abdul Carter in the first round, our first pick, like I said, we're still going to need a quarterback. Now, true, I think we will end up either drafting a quarterback in the fourth round. I think we're also going to end up signing a veteran, someone like Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, somewhere like that can be kind of a bridge quarterback for the Titans until we, are solidified on who our franchise quarterback is going to be for the next 10 years. And I actually believe that Justin Fields, quarterback out of the Steelers, that plays currently playing in Pittsburgh, I think Justin Fields would actually fit pretty good. Now, I know a lot of people are going to give me some pushback on this. So, even though we're not going to draft a quarterback, and like I said, I don't think we are. I don't think we draft a quarterback in the first round. I think we're still going to draft a quarterback, maybe third, fourth, fifth round, possibly. If we go after Justin Fields, so let's just say we can get a trade for him for, say, a fourth round pick. Is the quarterback that we're going to draft as a rookie going to give us more upside than Justin Fields, who has already been in the league for 2 years? You kind of know what you're getting from him. And he can extend plays with his legs. I think that is, with us having a offensive line that is going to be developing, working, trying to get to where they can work as a unit, having someone like that as a quarterback that feels that same spot as that we would do as drafting a rookie, say in, like I said, the third or fourth or fifth round. I think Justin Field kind of fits that bill. So I would definitely look at going after Justin Fields. And we don't even know what the Steelers are going to do. I mean, if I was the Steelers, I probably would keep him as, if nothing else, like I said, I would keep him and re-sign him and keep him on the team. He's shown you what he can do. Now, moving forward, also one of the, I think a free agent that I think we should be able to get, it wouldn't be very, very expensive, and that's Carlton Davis, cornerback. Carlton Davis III, cornerback out of the Lions. Now, he had a jaw injury, and I'm going to tell you why that doesn't scare me. He doesn't need his jaw to be a cornerback. Simple as that. I mean, that injury sidelined him. I understand. I think Carlton Davis, if we can get him for not a whole lot, not break the bank, I think he's a great cornerback to go after. He's played on a really good, successful team. And once again, I do 100% believe, and I think we should. I think the Titans are going to draft a lot of these positions as rookies in the draft. Signing some of these veteran free agents will only help those rookies. It's only going to solidify our team in the long run so that going on down the line, not only do we have good position play now, we've got guys, rookies that we're drafting right now that come in and they see veterans and they get to learn behind them so that when it's time to move on from that veteran, we've got a rookie that can step up there. We've got a player that can step up there and fit the bill. Now, last but not least, I'm going with another safety that I think we should target, and that's Cameron Bynum out of Minnesota. Plays with the Vikings. Been 3.5 years in the NFL. I think once again, that would give us an opportunity to have someone there that's been in the league. I do think we do draft a safety, I believe, in the draft. And I will say this, I think with Bynum, a lot of that depends on where we stand with Quandre Diggs. If he's healthy, I don't see so much of us going for that. And I can actually see the Titans possibly moving on from Diggs and going with somebody like Bynum. I'm also good with that. So I think on the safety position, either whether we retain Diggs, provided that he's healthy, or go after somebody like Bynum, I'm all for that. And I think that'd be a really good move for the Tennessee Titans. So that being said, I think that's about all I've got that I'm looking at in the free agent market. It doesn't mean that I think we won't go after other players. But if you think about how Kansas City is built, we now have Borgonzi, and what Brinker stated in all of his earlier interviews is that we're going to build this team from the draft, developing players that are currently in the league. It doesn't look like, from what I can see, that Brinker's one of those guys that's going to look to go and try and sign and fill immediate needs with veterans that you got to pay a lot of money to that we may only get 3-4 years out of. And I think that may be kind of what led up to them moving on from Rand Carthon. And like I said, I think Rand Carthon is I think he's going to be a great, great general manager. However, I think Rand Carthon was kind of hired to give the Titans an opportunity to win in the next 2 or 3 years. And based on what happened this season, I think they've decided to go in a different direction. So thus we've got Brinker, and I think Brinker's philosophy along with Borgonzi kind of tells us that we're going to be developing this team through the draft, some free agent picks, but I don't think it's going to be the major free agent splash like we had with Calvin Ridley and people like that under the Rand Carthon era. So With that being said, like I said, I do think that we're going to be developing players. I mean, and listen, Titan fans, do I want us to win now? Yes, we all do. We want to win now. We want to win now. We want to win now. However, think about this. We've got a lot to be excited about. We've got a new stadium coming. We've got a front office that, in my opinion, is breaking the mold in how front offices are constructed in the NFL. Like I said, it's yet to see how this works out. But provided that everyone that is working together continues to be able to work together, as a fan, I think we're only going to see a really, really great product when it comes to players and schemes on the football field. So, like I said, I'm totally excited about that. Last but not least, I know we talked about how, man, we all know how bad the last season was. I actually have a bright spot, and I want to bring this up because, like I said, it's so much that didn't go well for us this season. I'll give you if you could say maybe a light at the end of the tunnel. Think about this. The Tennessee Titans were not bad on defense. And I'm going to say that again. We were not bad on defense. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the Titans, I think we're ranked like number 2 in passing defense. Second, yes, in total defense, second in passing defense. Now, we kind of fell off on some of the other stats they do when it comes to defense. And I think a lot of that has to do is predicated based on how our offense was. But I do think that the Tennessee Titans, and I know that, I mean, our defense under the defensive coordinator, with Denard, we are definitely headed further into the right direction on the defensive side of the ball than we are on the offensive side of the ball. And I want to remind you once again, what did Jalen Hurst, the MVP, Super Bowl MVP, what was he quoted as saying in the postgame interview? Defense wins championships. I think that's where the Titans go. I think we shore up our defense with that edge rusher, with Abdul Carter. And I am extremely excited. I'm fired up about what we're going to be doing in this offseason. A couple of dates we want to remember. Like I said, free agency starts in March the 12th. We've got the combine. We've also got the pro days that are going to be going on in March. And then we've got the NFL draft coming up in April. A lot of stuff that's going to happen in between then. I guarantee you I'm going to keep you guys up to date, giving you all the breaking news. And definitely don't forget my opinion on everything that is Tennessee sports.